Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement Gram Mysore has organized a series of webinars on social stock exchange and social enterprises, a conceptual framework. I welcome you all to the first part of this webinar series. Social stock exchange is a platform on which social enterprises, volunteer groups, and welfare organizations are listed so that they can raise capital for the welfare of the society and the disadvantaged. A recent survey conducted by the British Council India on the status of social enterprises said that access to debt or equity is a huge barrier to growth and sustainability of these social enterprises. This barrier can be overcome by bringing social enterprises and investors on a single platform, and solution is social stock exchange. Considering the importance of this social stock exchange, KSRDPRO and GRAM joined hands together to conduct a web series of webinars. Before starting the sessions, I would like to present a promo video of KSRDPRO Gadag.
Thinking of PG after graduation? Are you aware programs like MA Rural Development, MCom Cooperative Management, MBA Rural Management, MSc Data Analytics, MSW Community Development and Community Health, and Master of Public Health are new trend these days? Karnataka State Rural Development and Panchayat Raj University, with a vision of Rural Roots Global Heights, is offering you innovative PG programs with better employment opportunities in government, semi-government, NGO and private sectors. Get admission to PG programs with specialization in enterprise management, geoinformatics, food science and technology, public administration, development economics and so on. For more details, log on to ksrdpru.ac.in or call 08372230338 or WhatsApp to 77951
Thank you all for watching this video. Now I request Professor Basaraj L. Lakkana to give welcome address and introduce the dignitaries and speakers of this webinar.
Good afternoon to everybody. Karnataka State Rural Development and Panchayat Raj University Gadag and Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement Mysore jointly organized webinar series on social stock exchange and social enterprises, a conceptual framework. In this webinar, I wholeheartedly welcome all the participants. In this webinar, I would like to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Vishnukant S. Chitpadi sir, behalf of our university and myself, wholeheartedly welcome this webinar, sir.
Thank you.
Before coming in this university, sir worked in the different capacities like NCT, UGC, NAG, Skill India, and before coming here, sir is work as a registrar, Rani Channamma University, and special officer, Vishweshwaraya Technical University, and such a wonderful resource person. Now he is our university vice chancellor. I am very grateful, sir, and wholeheartedly welcome in this webinar, sir, once again. I also welcome Dr. Ananya, Senior Research Fellow and Head Research, Gram Mysore. Madam is worked last 7 years here for Gram. She holds PhD in Political Science from the National University of Singapore. And her PhD research investigated is the relationship between accountability and performance of Panchayat Raj institutions in West Bengal and Madhya Pradesh. Madam also worked in Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai, and she has served as a lecturer last 3.5 years in the Department of Political Science and Mass Media at Wilson College, Mumbai. Madam worked in the different capacities like World Health Organization, Karnataka Evaluation Authority. She is also worked as a resource person in public policy training session organized by GRAM, a partnership with Quality Council published so many research papers. And myself wholeheartedly welcome in this webinar, madam. Wholeheartedly welcome. I also welcome Kiran sir. Kiran sir is now CEO of ONGC Foundations. Sir is a transformational leader, coach, correspondent, strategist, senior entrepreneurship, CSR professional. Over last 25 years, sir worked in the different capacity, especially in corporate experience. Sir is in-depth experience with grassroots special organization held in senior management role in companies like wireless and software and ISOL groups. Sir is also actively contributed his time in time and leadership in the various youth and social development organization. His work was spent across the nation, including Northeast. Sir is also worked in project management team of Karnataka Knowledge Commission, member of Karnataka Skill Commission, and Executive Council of member of Vishweshwaraya Technical University. He is involved in the advisory in the mentor for the various civic social works. Sir, once again, behalf of our university, wholeheartedly welcome, sir, in this webinar, sir. Wholeheartedly welcome. I also welcome our coordinator of Master of Social Work Program, Dr. Geeta N. Bangari, madam. Wholeheartedly welcome in this webinar, madam. I also welcome Somling Karni, faculty members of MSW, and also I wholeheartedly welcome all the participants who are presented in this webinar. Once again, I wholeheartedly welcome all the participants. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your warm welcome speech and introducing the dignitaries and the speakers. Now I request Professor Vishnukant S. Chetpalli, Vice Chancellor KSRD PRU Gadag, to give introductory remarks about this webinar.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣಾಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಪಂಚಾಯತ್ ರಾಜ್ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯ ಮತ್ತು ಗ್ರಾಸ್ ರೂಟ್ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅಡ್ವೊಕಸಿ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಮೈಸೂರು ಅವರ ಜಂಟಿ ಆಶ್ರಯದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯದ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಇಬ್ರು ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ತಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವು ಎರಡು ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ, ಒಂದು ಗ್ರಾಮು, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ರೂರಲ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪಂಚಾಯತ್ ರಾಜ್. ಇವೆರಡು ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಸೇರಿಸಿ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತತೆಯನ್ನು ಗಮನಿಸಿ ನಾವು ಈ ಒಂದು ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಸೀರೀಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆತ್ಮೀಯ ನನ್ನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರಾದ DM ಕಿರಣ್ ಅವರು ಕಳೆದ 3 ದಶಕಗಳಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರು. ಅವರು IT ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಿಂದ, ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಿಂದ, ಇನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಎಲ್ಲದರಲ್ಲೂ ಕಾರ್ಯ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಿಂದ ದೇಶದ ರಾಜಧಾನಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದೇಶದ ಬಹಳ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯಾದ ONGCಯ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿಗಳನ್ನ ವಹಿಸುವಂತ ಕಾರ್ಯಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ನಿರ್ವಹಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬ ನಮ್ಮ ಆತ್ಮೀಯ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ, ಅದು ಗ್ರಾಮ್. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಅನನ್ಯ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗತ್ತೆ, ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಕಷ್ಟ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಬಾಲಸುಬ್ರಹ್ಮಣ್ಯ ಅವರು ಯಾರು ಈ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗತ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಕಾರ್ಯವೇ ಅವರ ಜೀವನದ ಕಾರ್ಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ತಮ್ಮ ವೈದ್ಯಕೀಯ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಮುಗಿಸಿ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದ ಯೂತ್ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಅನ್ನುವಂತ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಫೌಂಡರ್, ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಾರ್ಯನಿರ್ವಹಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥವರು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಅನನ್ಯ ಅವರು. ಅವ್ರು ಪಶ್ಚಿಮ ಬಂಗಾಳದವರು, ಕೋಲ್ಕತ್ತಾ, ಅವ್ರಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಕಲ್ಕತ್ತಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕಿರಣ್ ಅವ್ರು ಡೆಲ್ಲಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾವೊಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ದೇಶದ ಊರು ಗದಗ್ ಜಿಲ್ಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ತಂತ್ರಜ್ಞಾನದ ಉಪಯೋಗದಿಂದ ಇವರೆಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಯಶಃ ಇಡೀ ದೇಶದ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸ್ಥಾನಗಳಿಂದ ನಾವು ಕೇಳುವಂತ ಅವಕಾಶ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ಈಗ ಪ್ರಚಲಿತವಾಗಿ in these days, this social name has become very popular. Not that people didn't knew this social, but it has become very popular in these 6 months because of the name of social distancing. People were telling that we should have physical distance. But now in this pandemic situation, this new name has been coined. Because of social distance, everywhere this terminology is, when entrepreneurship started, people started then bringing a new name called as social entrepreneurship. Now, when this pandemic came, it is called as now social distancing. So also the stock exchange is not a new name. Stock exchange is a very old name. As per my data and information goes, it is at least 200 and odd years. When I went through the data, I found that the biggest stock exchange in the world is New York Stock Exchange, which started in 1792. And then the Tokyo Stock Exchange and all. So this stock exchange is not a new name. What is new name is social stock exchange is a new name and new terminology. And when some new terminology comes, there is always a debate needed in a democratic system. And in this background, we felt that as a university whose main focus is on rural development, Panchayat Raj, we work on a large scale with the people who work in the rural area, and that too with the NGO sector. There is need for understanding for all of us to understand the premise, objective, functioning, concept, its effects, its counter effect, its viability in our country, because for us it is new, but worldwide this is not new. Ultimately, as told earlier by Geeta also, that it is a platform, and this platform will help to convert the cash in terms of the other words, the stock exchange. So it offers the liquidity in terms of investment, which is in a standardized form. But now the issues that are just debated all over the country is it useful to the NGO? Is it useful to which kind of NGO? What will happen to the funding pattern? So there are several issues, maybe the conceptual framework and its intricacies, dissecting the concept and its utility and effectiveness and its advantages. I think these two resource persons who we know that they have been in this field for last almost 2.5 decades, they will be able to give you a wider perspective, or also helped us to understand and also give us a clarity and clarifications on the issues that we had got apprehensions, concerns and all. Already SEBI has created a technical group, and in this technical group, fortunately, a person who is having information of the ground level reality, like Dr. Bal Subramanya, who is the member of the technical group, and these guidelines are getting ready. And when these guidelines are getting ready, it becomes more than important that we understand it. And if there are any feedback or any other interventions are required, as a group we can send it, or as an individual we can also suggest. So I think the purpose of this webinar is to see that we have a clarity, we have an understanding of its utility and how effective this social stock exchange in the Indian context, or people who are working in this NGO sector on a large sector. Sometimes they say that the NGO sector is bigger than the government sector, but I don't have the data, but generally it is said. So this platform will enable us to take ahead whatever issues that are present in the public domain today. And I am confident that this webinar series, and as discussed earlier, we didn't want to have a very closed door one-day seminar where 2 hours speak by two experts and then finish. We would like to continue this. Maybe after Deepavali, we will have our second webinar. The dates and other things will be announced. And if necessary, we can continue with the third and fourth seminar. So this webinar series should be able, by the time the guidelines are ready, our discussion and other things are also ready. And based on this discussion platform, we can suggest our interventions, suggestions, recommendations to the august body, whichever is doing this, in taking this ground level feedback. So that by the end of the session, after the two resource persons give their thought process or thinking, I request the participants also to place their questions or in the chat box or whatever the organizers have made a mechanism to view the queries, so that those doubts are cleared on today's topic and taking things ahead. So I am very thankful to again both the resource persons and also the organizers, and wish the webinar series a successful social investment, so that this webinar is not again a time spent, but it is a social time spent which will lead for further growth. Dhanyavad, namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for providing an insight into the term social stock exchange and for explaining the purpose of this webinar. Now we are going to start the sessions. I request participants to send their questions through chat box. It will be addressed during the question and answer session. The first session of this webinar is Introduction to Social Stock Exchange and Social Enterprises. I request Dr. Ananya Samajdar to conduct this session.
Yes. Dr. Geeta, is the PPT visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Yeah, I'll put it on slideshow.
Yeah.
Just give me a minute, please. Yeah. Am I audible, Dr. Geeta? Is my voice clear to everybody?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, all right. So, a very good afternoon to Vice Chancellor, sir, the distinguished co-panelists. Geeta ma'am, thank you for all your support during the last few days. Vice Chancellor, sir, Prof. Chatpalli has already talked about context of this topic. So we are speaking about social stock exchange, which we are hearing about so much in the news, in the media nowadays. It's a new term for some of us. And there's a lot of discussion going on. So it's good to know a little bit about what this concept actually means. And we are also going to speak about another concept today, which is called the social enterprises. Dr. Geeta also spoke about this concept of social enterprises, and she spoke about how social enterprises are hungry for finance, for capital to grow. So basically, we should be seeing, what is this concept of a social stock exchange, and also social enterprises, which are envisaged to be critical players on the demand side of the social stock exchange. So As was mentioned just now, this is going to probably be a series of sessions. So the purpose of my presentation today is to elaborate the concepts only. So we won't be getting into the roadmap and the actual operationalization too much in today's session. It's just going to touch on that. The focus is more on the concept and understanding it. So what is a social stock exchange? So basically the need for this kind of an entity, a social stock exchange, arises because there's a need for a lot of financing of the sustainable development goals. To meet the sustainable development goals by 2030 would require a huge amount of money. One estimate says that $1 trillion would be required, of which less than half is currently available if you put together all the development financing available. So there's a gap of more than $500 billion. So where is that extra money going to come from? So this is where we have the need for innovative platforms, innovative mechanisms which will channelize finance to meet our most pressing development problems. So what is a social stock exchange? So it's a platform. Okay? It's a platform which enables the social sector organizations, specifically social enterprises, a term which I'll make clear a little later in the presentation. So all these social sector organizations, social sector actors will be able to get the capital, will be able to get the finance from investors. So it's, in a way, it's a kind of a forum which brings together the investors and the investees. But it is not a mere matchmaking platform. In fact, India has in the past also experimented with some matchmaking platforms, like, the BSE Samman platform was there. So there has been some experimentation with just a matchmaking platform, but a social stock exchange is much more than a matchmaking platform. So, the term stock exchange is contained in the term social stock exchange. So it has some features similar to a commercial stock exchange. So whether it is, the Bombay Stock Exchange or the NSE. So there are some features which are borrowed, which are similar to a commercial stock exchange. And what is that similar feature? That similar feature is that a social stock exchange is also a trading platform. So where it's a trading platform, just like a commercial stock exchange is. So where investors can buy the financial instruments, can buy the securities, which are issued by the investee organizations like the social enterprises. So the thing to remember is it's much more than a matchmaking platform. So of course, it borrows features from a commercial stock exchange, but it's also different from a commercial stock exchange. Because a commercial stock exchange, we have investors who are looking for money only, who are looking for financial returns only. But who are the investors who come to a social stock exchange? The investors who come to a social stock exchange are more socially conscious institutions or individuals. They are more enlightened, they are more ethical. They are looking not just for financial returns, but they are also looking for their investment to generate social impact. So they're also looking for the social returns. So they give importance to both financial returns and to social returns. So important participants on the investee side would be the social enterprise. So social enterprise is what? Social enterprise is an organization which is working for a social purpose, which is working for the social good, but it doesn't only pursue the social returns. It also pursues financial returns. It also carries out some commercial activities, maybe as a means to further social purpose, but different from a pure NGO, which only pursues the social purpose. So social enterprise, essentially, we have to understand at this stage, is an organization that blends the pursuit of social returns and financial returns. And I really would like to excuse not being able to speak in Kannada. My Kannada is not at all good. In fact, I know very little. So ನನಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕನ್ನಡ ಗೊತ್ತು. Okay? But Kannada ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. So I will speak in English ದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. Thank you so much. So why do you need a social stock exchange? So, there are these organizations, development sector organizations, who are pursuing solutions to our most urgent problems, in poverty, livelihood, healthcare, energy access. These are the areas where they are pursuing solutions. So for that, obviously, they need the capital, they need the money. So for two things. One is to become financially sustainable. I mean, you have an innovative solution, you have a good solution, but you want to be able to sustain it over a period of time. So for the sake of financial sustainability, they need access to capital, which can come from an innovative forum like the social stock exchange. The second reason is to achieve scale. I mean, they might be having an innovative solution, but they would want to replicate it, to take it up on a larger scale to benefit more people, to benefit more regions. So it is for these two reasons, for scale, to achieve scale and to achieve financial sustainability, that these social actors, social enterprises are looking for capital, are looking for finance, which a forum such as a social stock exchange can provide. Now, supposing these entities, as we shall learn in the presentation today, for-profit organizations, for-profit companies can also be social enterprises. But supposing they were to go on a commercial stock exchange like the Bombay Stock Exchange, would they, that they would face difficulties, because after all, they are social purpose organizations. They are pursuing a social mission. But if they go on a commercial stock exchange, they would need to kind of compromise or dilute or give up their social objectives in order to generate the financial returns. Why? Because their investors are expecting those dividends, are expecting those financial returns. So after a point, they'll have to compromise on their social mission. That is why you cannot have them kind of seeking capital on a commercial stock exchange. That is why you need a dedicated forum of enlightened investors, which is a social stock exchange. So it allows the primacy of the social mission to be protected. And from the American context, there are some interesting stories, of companies such as Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's is a well-known ice cream company. They are also, they have their own kind of social missions. Body Shop, is a very well-known beauty products brand. Many of the ladies here today would have heard of this brand. So these are organizations, they are companies, they're for-profit entities, but they come with their own social missions. For example, Body Shop, they source from certain communities living in Africa. And they believe in fair trade principles. So the head of the Body Shop company, Dame Anita Roddick, had said that she had tried to once go on the commercial stock exchange, and she said it was a huge mistake that I made. Then a company like Ben & Jerry's also, they had also tried going on the commercial stock exchange and faced immense difficulties. I mean, they could not generate the financial returns, and they were eventually taken over by Unilever, by the company Unilever. So it just shows that it's difficult, for a socially oriented company, a company with social purpose, to generate financial returns at that level. It would be nice if they could have access to socially enlightened investors. Okay, so these are the advantages that a social stock exchange provides. And like Chatpalli sir was saying, he was mentioning at the outset about benefits like liquidity, for the investors. So if a social stock exchange is adopted in the true sense, the true meaning of a social stock exchange, it should have it should allow the secondary trading, where if I own a share, if I own a security, but I need money, मुझे पैसों की ज़रूरत है, I can just kind of sell it off, So that kind of liquidity which a normal stock exchange, commercial stock exchange provides, a social stock exchange in its conceptual sense, in its true sense, must provide that kind of liquidity or exit path. Okay. But as we shall be seeing later on in today's presentation, I mean, there have been some social stock exchange experiments in the world. Number of countries have tried it out, but true social stock exchange, especially with the features like secondary trading, are almost non-existent. It is extremely, extremely rare. But nevertheless, as we are seeing, social stock exchange affords many, many advantages. It can be a forum for socially responsible investing. So we can think, we can really picture those kind of investors, a socially conscious institution or a socially conscious individual, which is looking for some degree of financial return, but below market rate. Even if they don't get the market rate of financial returns, they would still be satisfied. They would still be happy. So these socially responsible investors, would find a social stock exchange a useful platform for channelizing their capital for good causes. Okay, but there are other kinds of investing, also, like we have impact investing. Impact investors look for the market rate of financial returns. So they also look for the social impact and social returns. And then on the other end, you also have the venture philanthropy, who only look for the social returns or the social impact. So maybe social stock exchange can be a suitable forum for all these kinds. But conceptually speaking, I feel that it is most suited for socially responsible investing, where investors are willing to also accept the below market rate returns. So in summary, a social stock exchange can help set up an ethical and transparent investment environment for India, for the social sector organizations. And it is social enterprises which are really most suited to benefit from from the social stock exchange, because they blend the pursuit of social returns and financial returns. Because the classic NGO that we speak of, they usually are concerned with the social returns only. So, but having said that, I mean, I cannot say that the social stock exchange will not benefit NGOs at all. Okay. In fact, a lot will depend on the design of social stock exchange that will come up. The committee, which is, technical group appointed by the government, appointed, at the moment, which is looking into the operationalization of the social stock exchange, in which Dr. Balasubramaniam is also there. I mean, it is their deliberations which will decide the form of a social stock exchange. But one can imagine that social enterprises are most well placed to benefit. But we can also imagine that some, NGOs who are more innovative, who are, like they are taking some features of business model, and those, who are said to have the DNA of the enterprises. Okay. Maybe some of these NGOs would also benefit. Of course, this is a topic which Kiran sir will be elaborating, so it's not proper for me to dwell on this at the moment. Now, what is a social stock exchange made of? Social stock exchange essentially is composed of a demand side ecosystem, a supply side ecosystem, and the infrastructure and intermediaries. So I shall explain these building blocks very, very briefly today in today's session. It is not going to be touched on in great detail. So first of all, the important thing to keep in mind is that social stock exchange is a new thing for the Indian context. Okay, it has been tried out in other countries also. Brazil, the Jamaica, in Mauritius, in England, in Canada. They've all tried it out, but it has, the full-fledged or the actual true social stock exchange is not seen anywhere, and also successes are, highly constrained. So there is no proper, precedent as such to draw on. And for our context, it is very, very new. So a lot of thought has to go into the development of a social stock exchange. You can't just establish it like that suddenly. The demand side ecosystem is the foundation of a social stock exchange. So that has to be built first. So who are going to be the participants on the demand side? The investees, okay, the social enterprises, okay. Or we can also imagine, that a variety of for-profit and non-profit organizations would like to benefit from the social stock exchange. So some kind of orientation has to happen, especially if we have like the non-profit organizations who till date have not really been revenue oriented, who have till date, focused on the social activities, activities for generating the social returns. But they have not really focused on being financially sustainable or on generating revenue. So they have to open their minds up to that and become open to that, to revenue generation. So while keeping their social purpose primary, they can't forget their social purpose. So then social stock exchange will have very stringent reporting requirements. Okay, I mean, investors are going to put in their money. They're going to demand a high level of accountability. So they're going to demand accountable and transparent governance, the high standards of transparent governance to be followed in the investee organizations. Then there is going to be, one of the most important things in a social stock exchange is the reporting standards are going to be very, very stringent. So whether it is the social impact reporting standards or the financial reporting standards will be at a very high level. So the SEBI report, like Graham came up with a report on social stock exchange, Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI also came up with a report on social stock exchange. So they, in that report also, which contained like, the deliberations of SEBI at that stage, they also talked about the need for having common minimum reporting standards for both the for-profit organizations and the non-profit organizations. Even so, there is one standard, one set of reporting standards which is common to the FPOs and the NPOs. So really, for NGOs, they will have to be oriented towards being able to adhere to those standards. And then generating measurable social impact. So as we all know, for those of us, I'm sure you can appreciate, ladies and gentlemen who are attending today's session, would appreciate that it is very difficult to measure social impact. Social impact is not mere compliance, that you are there to some environmental standards or social standards in your work. You don't use child labor, you save power, you have a green, environmentally sustainable way of functioning. You're maybe you are distributing, or you are providing some products or services for the benefit of the less privileged communities also. But we know that impact is much beyond outputs. It is very difficult to measure the change which has taken place in the lives of the communities. So for example, some organizations, if we may work on malaria, they are distributing the bed nets. Okay, they may have distributed 500 bed nets in a certain place, but is that their impact? 500 bed nets? No. Okay, 500 mosquito nets, is that their impact? That is not impact, that is output. So impact will be things like, and in maybe what is the change in the incidence of malaria in that locality? Is it so easy to measure? I mean, absolutely not, because malaria incidence may have fallen in that locality, but that could be because of some other reasons also. So you have to have that robust research methodology, or the robust experimental design, okay, or randomized controlled trial or something, to measure whether that fall in the incidence of malaria is because of the provision of mosquito nets or not. So really, social impact valuation is quite challenging. It is a specialized task, and there will be the need for agencies, social impact valuation organizations, who will kind of get into the game. So we can imagine that the social stock exchange, it's going to open up a lot of, avenues for certain kinds of professionals, especially, all the social impact valuation and all these things. They will all, receive an impetus from the advent of social stock exchange. Now, the demand side of a social stock exchange has to be really strong. Now, I'll be elaborating this a little later also. So we have for-profits in India. Okay, some of them are social purpose driven also. Many of them are the private limited companies. So we have, the for-profit entities. Then we have the non-profit entities. In India, we have the society, we have the trusts, we have the Section 8 companies. But they are also legally constrained in some ways. Okay, so for example, a trust, is prohibited by the tax laws to generate beyond a certain share of its income through the self income generating or the commercial activities. So those limitations are there, which kind of hinder a trust from becoming a full-fledged social enterprise. Then even the Section 8 companies, Section 8 is supposed to be like very similar to a social enterprise form. But even so, Section 8 company cannot distribute dividend to its shareholders. So there are limitations in the existing legal forms, which leads to the debate that maybe we need a new legal form. More on this later. I'll be talking about this in the second part of my presentation. So a social stock exchange is not just a business which adopts the ESG criteria. Okay, so you could have a company, there are many companies now, we have the ITC and so many other companies who are adopting the ESG criteria. They're adopting some environmental criteria. Some companies try to be water friendly, they try to reduce their carbon footprint. Some of them, they're doing the CSR activities, some of them, they're trying to focusing on having a transparent governance. So just adopting the ESG doesn't make you like a social enterprise. A social enterprise has a primary social purpose. And in India, of course, if we want, a wide range of organizations to emerge as social enterprises and to benefit from the social stock exchange, our tax laws will also need to be reconsider, because like I said, a trust, for example, cannot generate more than a minor share of its income through commercial activities. So the Indian social stock exchange, which will emerge, it should benefit a range of organizations. We really want an inclusive social stock exchange, don't we? I mean, we all want that organizations working at the grassroots, who are doing good work at the grassroots, they should also benefit from it. I mean, this is a desire, but a lot of preparation, a lot of orientation has to precede that. So we need to have that kind of capacity building. Maybe the term capacity building, it doesn't sound nice. I mean, we're thinking that some superior person is teaching something to the NGOs, but and NGOs, I mean, they come with their own rich experience and knowledge of the grassroots. But still, having said that, I mean, to benefit from a social stock exchange, they will need to be oriented with certain capacities. So their governance, their reporting, their social impact measurement, all these things, revenue oriented toward generating revenue. I mean, there is that need for the hand-holding to happen. So because we want an inclusive social stock exchange, and of course the legal forms also. I mean, if the law is preventing a non-profit from generating beyond a certain share of its income through commercial activities, then there is a need. And we also want our social stock exchange to be a success, to be inclusive. Why not relook our tax laws? Okay. So, and of course, the social stock exchange would be useful for the social startups who would want to generate some innovative solutions to social problems. So really, the demand side is the bedrock of a social stock exchange, the investee side. And a social stock exchange should not be hastily started without establishing a solid demand side foundation, whether it is through the appropriate legal changes or through the appropriate capacity building of the non-profit sector. So then, which brings us to the other side, the obverse side of a social stock exchange, which is the supply side. So who makes up the supply side? So supply side is the investors. Okay, I think there's a typo there. It's investors, those who will invest their money. So like I said, commercial stock exchange only looking for financial returns. Social stock exchange, they have to be enlightened. They must give importance to social impact, and they must not insist on high financial returns. They must be willing to accept low financial returns below market rate. So who could be there on the side of the investors? Institutional investors or even retail investors, like people, individuals like you and me, who some of us invest in the normal commercial stock exchange. So maybe here also we could have individuals participating in this whole trading game. So who could be? So maybe high net worth individuals, corporates, venture capitalists, government, philanthropic trusts. We can envisage a range of investors for the social stock exchange. Now, what kind of instruments could be there? So recently, I know those of you who have read the report of SEBI, would be having an idea on this, on what kind of instruments have been proposed. A lot of people have disagreed also with those instruments. I won't get into that debate right now, as of now. But there could be a variety of instruments. Also looking at the experiments of other social stock exchanges in different countries in the world, some of them have adopted like equity. So the SEBI report also says that the for-profit organizations could benefit from the equity, share. Then the bonds, or debt. This is also, bonds could also possibly benefit some of the non-profits. So again, the SEBI report also talks about the use of bonds. So bonds linked to the social returns. Then simple crowdfunding. So even though a social stock exchange is not a simple matchmaking platform, it cannot just be, investor and investee brought together and they come together and the marriage happens. It is not like that. Okay? But we can also keep that. I mean, even though we could possibly have the other instruments like the equity, like debt, these other securities could be there, but we could also have the simple matchmaking as another alternative, as another option from which the NPOs, non-profits, could benefit. And investors who are going to come, they have to be incentivized through the tax breaks. There have to be some incentives. I mean, see, if I, as an investor, if I am going in for lower than market rate returns, then I want some incentives, tax incentives, or some non-monetary incentives like some branding, accreditation, something, which some recognition, something, which will make me feel good. So the important thing is that kisi ko bhi mat lao. That's the important thing. You want socially conscious, ethical investors, patient, the need for patient investors. Okay. There's even a patient investors code of conduct which has been advocated by some authors, and there's a need for screening of investors. So even though you want a lot of capital to come in your social stock exchange, but there should be screening of the investors. Okay, right. Then the next, so first pillar, demand side, which is the foundation. Second pillar is the supply side, which is the investors. The third side is the infrastructure of the social stock exchange. So as you know, social stock exchange needs the rules, the whole framework of rules, regulations, trading systems, technological systems, so pura chahiye. So it is very difficult to generate it from the scratch. One option is to partner with an existing stock exchange. So jaise Bombay Stock Exchange hai already. So one option is to is for a social stock exchange to partner with the commercial stock exchange. Ki Bombay Stock Exchange ne already developed kiya hua hai. They've already developed their rules, regular listing rules. We could build on that, and obviously you can't duplicate it or copy it or replicate it. With modification, it can be adopted. So the name given to this kind of a partnership is called the modular approach. So where, say for example, in India, the social stock exchange will be partnering with the Bombay Stock Exchange to base its own framework on what is available with the Bombay Stock Exchange. So that is one option. The second option is a freestanding. Ki matlab autonomous, free. Matlab we from scratch we will develop all our listing rules and everything. So we have to, I mean, our distinguished technical group will be considering, which is the best approach, obviously. But the discourse, the debate is really, I think, even the SEBI report had talked about partnership with an existing stock exchange. Even Graham in its report had kind of talked about making use of the existing infrastructure under an existing stock exchange like the Bombay Stock Exchange. Because Bombay Stock Exchange is also, it's a sustainable stock exchange, as per the UN's, under the UN initiative on sustainable stock exchanges. So it has sustainability features. So most likely, I think there is going to be partnership with an existing stock exchange. But there are disadvantages with that also. I mean, you are going to be kind of basing your rules on the rules of a commercial stock exchange. And one author, Dadush, she has studied social stock exchanges, like in UK, in Canada, in Singapore. And through her study, she has found them to be too close for comfort. She says that the social stock exchanges are too influenced by the commercial stock exchange. They carry the blueprint or the imprint of the commercial stock exchanges in their rules. So even if the social stock exchange of tomorrow is going to be based on the listing rules and the other, rules of the Bombay Stock Exchange, it must be looked at very, very critically to ensure that there are mechanisms for protection of the social mission. Remember that a commercial stock exchange is oriented towards financial, generation of financial returns. The social stock exchange has to ensure a balance of financial and social returns. So that protection of social mission to ensure that, organizations who are seeking funds at the social stock exchange don't have to compromise or don't have to give up on their social purpose just to generate the profits. So that has, the social stock exchange rules must be formulated in such a way. And authors like Sara Dadush have made suggestions also. Like, you should have those rules like beneficiary interest, beneficiary feedback. And one of the examples which she gives, and I'm sure many of you have also heard of, is the example of the microfinance institutions. So microfinance is really a very good way of understanding, this concept of a social enterprise and its advantages, but also its dangers. That, they obviously the loans they give are supposed to emancipate the women, the poor women, enable them to take up the income generation activities. We understand the social side very well. But what about the other side? I mean, there's also the financial side. So these often, that we also have heard about the high rates of interest which are charged by these microfinance loans. So women have sometimes been extremely distressed, and there have also been cases of borrower suicide, which have been heard about. So, that quest for financial returns वो आपसे क्या करवाता है, what does it lead you to do? That microfinance is really a nice way of understanding. Maybe of course it's just an extreme example, but it helps you to understand what are the advantages and the dangers of the concept of a social enterprise. So an author like Sarah Dadush has suggested that there should be some mechanisms for taking the beneficiary feedback. So as you know, they will have to report, the social enterprises or whoever is the investees, they will have to do adhere to the financial and social reporting standards, to report on their social impact. But as part of reporting on their social impact, they should also report the beneficiary feedback. So for example, if these voices of these women who were distressed because of having to pay very, very high loans on the interest, supposing those stories were to be heard from these women, we would have a clearer idea about, the constrained impact of, these organizations, of these social enterprises. So a social stock exchange will have an infrastructure which can either be independent or it can be linked to an existing commercial stock exchange. So a true social stock exchange should have brokers, intermediaries, who will mediate the sale and the purchase, who will mediate between the investor and the investee. Okay. Now, actually, what we are seeing in some of the existing experiments are that they are not the true social stock exchanges. Singapore has its IIX, the Impact Investment Exchange. There are many other social stock exchanges which have been experimented with, but they are actually what we call the private placement platforms. They are not the full-fledged social stock exchange. So why? Because there they don't have the brokers mediating. There you have, in a private placement, you have the direct interaction of the investor and the investee. It is not mediated by the brokers. Whereas in a true social stock exchange, that mediation would be there. And also in a private placement platform, you have more limited, participation. Maybe it's more institutional. Individuals like you and me would possibly not be participants as investors. So a private placement platform is really, it's more limited in that sense. And a true social stock exchange will allow larger participation, more widespread participation, but even the reporting requirements, disclosure requirements will be that much more stringent. Having said that, maybe a good way to start a social stock exchange is start as a private placement platform. आपको छोटे इस तरह से limited way से आप start करो. You allow a more limited range of participants, and then gradually, through experience, and then you develop yourself into a full-fledged social stock exchange. एक और option है. Okay, so coming towards the end of this concept of social stock exchange, after which I will quickly go through the concept of social enterprise. So are there true social stock exchanges anywhere in the world?
Both you may not be able to cover now.
Yeah, is there any issue, please? Hello?
Both you may not
Hello? Are any audio issues happening or screen?
No. Everything is happening. It is a question of time. You may have to.
How many more minutes do I have?
You as per the timeline, it is almost over.
Okay, so can I take about 5 minutes more?
Geeta,
Yes,
let there be 5 minutes more.
okay.
And whatever is remaining doesn't mean that we want to complete the syllabus.
Okay.
We can take it next time.
Okay, so I'll just.
We are not in the university mode of completing the syllabus.
Okay, sure. So I'll
in 5 minutes, whatever you want to conclude, you conclude.
Okay.
And take that point for the next series we will take. We have no hurry. Let us have a proper discussion.
Okay, so I'll just finish with this slide.
Geeta, is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fine with it. Not an issue at all.
Are you interested in syllabus coverage or understanding?
Understanding, of course. Yeah. So are there true social stock exchanges anywhere functional in this world? So the answer to that is no, because the existing social stock exchanges that we see are mainly either they are the private placement ones, like Singapore's Impact Investment Exchange. They are the private placement, or you have simple crowdsourcing. Even India has kind of experimented with a simple matchmaking platform. That was not a social stock exchange. It didn't claim to be a social stock exchange also. Now, we'll see a variety of social stock exchanges in the world. some of them target the large investors. So like Singapore's impact investment, those big players who are there as investors. Then some are for small investors also. This is good for, countries like India to learn from. Like South Africa has the SASIX, which has, where even an investor, like even individual like you and me could possibly buy 50 rands worth of equity. So, I have bought like a small share. I'm not expecting any financial returns on it, but I feel proud that I have ownership in a particular project. So that kind of small investor model, maybe it's something which could be considered for the Indian context. Some are more suited to benefit the for-profit organizations as investees, because like in UK social stock exchange, where the rules are such, the structure is such, expectation of financial return is very, very high. There are some social stock exchanges where even the NGOs or the NPOs can benefit, like South Africa SASIX is there. Then Singapore's impact investment exchange, even though it's like on the investor side, we have big investors, but it also allows the NPOs, non-profits, to benefit because they have bonds. They have the women's livelihood bonds, from which even a non-profit organization could benefit through those bonds. Okay. And mostly, like, social stock exchanges are not the true social stock exchange because they don't allow the secondary trading. So like Chatpalli sir was mentioning, the liquidity element, social stock exchanges, to my knowledge, from what I've heard, they don't allow it. So the UK social stock exchange doesn't allow the secondary trading on itself, but it has a linked entity which is called the NextG. So NextG is a social stock exchange, it's a stock exchange for the small and medium enterprises. So on that, the secondary trading can be done, but not on the social stock exchange itself. Okay. So I think I will stop here today. Maybe when we have the question answer session or in the future session, I can talk about the concept of enterprises. So thank you so much for listening patiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Ananya.
Thank you, Dr. Ananya, for providing an insight about the social stock exchange, social enterprises, and socially responsible investment and its impact on other sectors. Thank you very much. Now we are heading towards second session, dissecting of the SSE from a NPO perspective. Now I request Shri DM Kiran sir to conduct this session.
Elrigu namaskara. It's been a pleasure to be part of this discussion. I would thank Dr. Chatpalli to give me an opportunity, and also Dr. Ananya gave us a complete conceptual background of social stock exchange. Let us now look at the current report of the working committee, which has been published from the SEBI, and look at basically from a not-for-profit perspective. We will not get into the details of investment and all those things. Basically, let us understand. Now, non-governmental NGO ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಇದನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಗಮನಿಸಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತ ಅಂಶಗಳೇನಿದೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಸ್ವೀಕರಿಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಒಳ್ಳೇದು. ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್. ಈಗ ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ವೈ ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಅ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ರ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್ 129 ಅಮಾಂಗ್ ದ 189 countries in Human Development Index as on 2019. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ 129th ರ್ಯಾಂಕ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಟು ಫಿಲಾಂಥ್ರಫಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸುಮಾರು 70,000 ಕೋಟಿ 2018ರಲ್ಲಿ ಫಿಲಾಂಥ್ರಫಿ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಗೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಮಾಜ ಸೇವೆಗೆ ಅಂತ ಬಂದಿರುವಂತ ಹಣ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಈ 70,000 ಕೋಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ CSR ಫಂಡ್ ಸೇರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ಫಾರಿನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ FCRI ಇಂದ ಬರುವಂತ ದುಡ್ಡು ಸೇರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, which accounts roughly around 35% of the total 70,000. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಷ್ಟನ್ನ CSR ಇಂದ ಮತ್ತೆ FCRI ಇಂದ ಬಂದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗಲೇ ಅನನ್ಯ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ ಯು ಲುಕ್ ಅಟ್ SDG ಗೋಲ್ಸ್ ರೀಚ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು 2030 ಒಳಗೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ Indian context ಅಲ್ಲಿ 4.2 lakh crores annually ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ಇಷ್ಟನ್ನು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು we will be only covering 5 SDG goals out of the 17. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸುಮಾರು 9 ರಿಂದ 11ರಲ್ಲಿ. So if you look at 4.2 crore investment, we are going to cover about 5 SDG goals. So this is the status at which we are. There is a difference of 4.2 to 70 crores itself. There is a huge gap. But when we are talking about covering SDG goals, the governmental investment also comes into play. In philanthropy, our governmental investment saving. Now, also looking at no standard impact measurement tools across NPOs working in various domains. Now, ಬೇರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮೆಜರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಮಾದರಿಯಾದಂತ ಅಥವಾ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡೈಸ್ ಟೂಲ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. So this is also another impediment for creating a social stock exchange, so that we bring in a measurement criteria. And majorly NPOs cannot raise debts, whereas for-profit organization can raise debts. ಈಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಾಲ ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ NPOಗೆ ನಾನ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಯಾರು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಪರ್ಸನಲ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಕೊಡುವುದೇ ಹೊರತು ಅಟ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನಲ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ nobody is going to give you loans. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೆಕ್ಯಾನಿಸಮೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. Then creating private participation platform for raising funds for social sector. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ 70 crore ಏನ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಈ ಸಮಾಜ ಸೇವೆಗೆ ಅಂತ, ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಷನ್ ಆಸ್ ಡೊನೇಷನ್, ಫಿಲಾಂಥ್ರಫಿಕ್. ಬಟ್ ಈ 4.2 crores ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ we need private participation not only at a philanthropic level but also at an investment level. So ಈ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ the social stock exchange was thought about as a new platform to bring in this kind of a support mechanism to work on the social sector. So primarily let us understand what are the differences. For profit, andre ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಿರೋದು I am not defining from a I am only defining it from a social sector, social and stock exchange perspective. For profit, there is a defined reporting both for financial and governance. SEBI business responsibility reporting framework, there is a framework which all for-profit companies will have to abide by. That means there is a mechanism, there is an internal audit process, there is a stakeholder management process, and financial audit process and governance. So there is a reporting structure. Then you have the new concept which has emerged, the triple baseline triple baseline line, which is talking about people, planet and profit. ನಾವು ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಇಂದ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದಾಗಬೇಕು, ಎನ್ವೈರನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ಲಾನೆಟ್ ಗೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದಾಗಬೇಕು ಅಥವಾ ಕೆಟ್ಟದಾಗಬಾರ್ದು. ಅದರ ಐ ವುಡ್ ಪುಟ್ ಇಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ವೇ, ನಾವು ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಇಂದ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಟ್ಟದಾಗಬಾರ್ದು, ಪ್ಲಾನೆಟ್ ಕೆಟ್ಟದಾಗಬಾರ್ದು, ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ದ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ I will do business, ethical business, which will not hinder, which will not create hindrance to people, planet, and at the same time generate profit. But I am not committing I will do something socially relevant and socially good. That is not the focus of for-profit organization. Then again, look at for-profit organization as the ability to raise capital as well as debt. Even in market, they can raise both equity capital as well as debt. ಈ ನಾಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಬಂದಾಗ even in a reporting mechanism, we have only IT filing and some report submission to state bodies. Even now society and the society register of society, we have to submit with along with IT filing and AMG annual general body report na submit. Whereas if it is a trust, in many states we don't submit anything other than an IT filing, except in state of Gujarat and Maharashtra, where there is a state trust body for which you need to submit the report. Ulivina stateಗಳಲ್ಲಿ there are no such bodies available. So there is no single place, or there is no place where you will be submitting or giving a report which is non-financial. Governance, the quality of work you have done, and what is the kind of impact you have created, where all you have been working. One report submit there is no provision. You can do it by yourself, but there is no provision or there is no need at this point of time. Second, if you are looking at commitment for social good. This is the basic purpose by which the not-for-profit would have started. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಸಮಾಜದ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿರುವಂತ ಸಂಘಟನೆಗಳಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. This is not for any other reason. The only reason that those organizations exist is so that they are able to do some social good work. And the last thing is they have the ability to raise philanthropic contribution. They cannot raise debt. Our sala agli athwa equity bekiruವಂತ ಬಂಡವಾಳ raise ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ not for profit ಗೆ capacity ಇಲ್ಲ. And by law it is not possible. But they can only raise philanthropic contribution, which is more on donation and grants. So this is the basic differences one we need to understand. Then SSC for NPOs, why this whole concept, like the need artha aitu. If you look at social stock exchange, what does it do? Effectively deploy the funding instruments and structures available under regulatory guideline towards social enterprise. So they are creating a platform. They are using the existing mechanism to deploy funding instruments. Here, for-profit enterprises gain there is a possibility of equity and social venture funds. For not-for-profit organization, yes, zero coupon, zero principal bond, social venture funds, mutual funds, various pay for success structures, other securities and units that may evolve. ಈ ತಾನೇ ಹುಟ್ಟಿರುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಕೂಸು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ evolve ಆಗ್ತಾ there will be lot of things that will get developed. Section 8 ಕಂಪನಿಗೆ equity ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, debt to raise ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇದೆ. Though they are not for profit, they can still raise equity and debt because they come into the framework of Companies Act. Again, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ foster all overall sectoral development by creating a capacity building unit responsible for. The social stock exchange is going to create a new kind of an ecosystem which will encourage setting up of self-regulatory organization. IRs ಅಂತ information repositories ಅಂತ ಈಗ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಗೈಡ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ even Darpan Niti Aayog site ಅವರು ಈ ತರದ್ದು they are doing some of these works. So ಇವರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿಸಿ they want to create a self-regulatory organization under SEBI, under social stock exchange. ಆಮೇಲೆ implementing the reporting standards, basic minimum standards ಏನ್ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ for reporting mechanism that will be created and monitored by this self-regulatory organizations. And then you have a capacity building fund. ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಪ್ರಾವಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಮೂವ್ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಅ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಟು a bit professional approach, including understanding of financial instruments, understanding of impact measurements, understanding and working in a completely different environment which not for profit is not used to. So ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಿರುವಂತ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಇದನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಫಂಡ್ ಅಂತ ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತಾರೆ. Then awareness and promotion among social enterprises and non-profit organizations. So they are, by and large, they are looking at creating a framework for not-for-profit and social enterprises to operate from a different platform other than the existing trading stock exchange. So this is the input from a NPO perspective. So the NPO participate ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Social stock exchange ಅಲ್ಲಿ if you have to participate, what is the minimum criteria? A self-declaration model for societal enterprise. They are going to create a model where you need to initially say that I am going to declare that I am going to work on creating social impact. So, which means even a for-profit organization can say that I want to create social impact, and I'm committed for measuring and reporting, then I can be considered as a social enterprise. It need not be not profit only. It can be for profit also, but the intent should be to create social impact. Then they are eligible to participate in this social stock exchange. This is the primary stage. ನಾನು ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ಗೆ, ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗೆ ನಾನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಇಂಟೆಂಟ್ ನಾವು ಡಿಕ್ಲೇರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಎರಡನೇದು ರೆಡಿನೆಸ್ ಟು ಮೆಷರಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆನ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವರ್ಕ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ನಾನು ಮಾಡಿರುವಂತ ಕೆಲಸನ, ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಕೆಲಸನ ಮೆಷರ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಇಟ್ ಬಿ ಮೆಷರ್ಡ್, ಅಂಡ್ ಆಮ್ ಐ ರೆಡಿ, ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೈ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್. Either based on that, you will be able to decide whether you can be part of the participate in the social stock exchange. Other is the willingness to collaborate with other NPOs in raising funds and delivery of service. See, the social stock exchange, this is basically a platform for scaling up of activities. ಇದು ನಾನೆಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದು ಹಳ್ಳಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ನಡೆಸ್ತೀನಿ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಫನೇಜ್ ನಡೆಸ್ತೀನಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಿರುವಂತ ದುಡ್ಡನ್ನ ರೇಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್. ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ವರ್ಕ್. ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಫಾರ್ ಅ ಬಿಗರ್ ಕಾಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕಬಲ್ ಅಟ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪಲ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸಸ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಆ ತರದ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಲೈನ್ ವಿತ್ ಅದರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ವಿತ್ ದೆಮ್ ಇನ್ ಕೊಲಾಬರೇಷನ್. ಆದ್ರೆ ಆರ್ ವಿ ಓಪನ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕೊಲಾಬರೇಷನ್? ಈಗ ನಾವು if not, we should be big. Andre nave pan India operate ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. We work in about 10 states. We have more than 1,000 grassroots level connects we have. Then yes, you can definitely get into this platform. Otherwise, you will not be able to participate. Then that's also the next point is readiness to participate in scale of activity. You should be prepared to do it. ಈಗ ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಅಕ್ಷಯ ಪಾತ್ರ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂದಾಗ then it makes a lot of difference because you are able to spread and replicate. But if I am going to say that I am going to work in my block, ನಮ್ಮ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತ ಒಂದು 40 ಶಾಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಿರೋ ಆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ I need so much money ಅಂದ್ರೆ only from that perspective it may become difficult to participate in social studies. ಬಟ್ ಈಗ ನಿಮ್ ತರ ಸಂಘಟನೆ ಯಾವುದು ಈ ಒಂದು ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದು, ಇಡೀ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ there are many organizations which work in education who and then we present the total project. Avaga then it becomes easy for us to participate. Otherwise the whole the economics of size will not be able to help you out. I mean, there is a paradigm shift in certain terminologies because the social stock exchange is going to come into play. Now, samanyavagi we call a person who gives a donation donor anta karithivi, danigalu anta. But social stock exchange perspective alli enaagite, all donors will become investors. They may invest. They are investors. There is no concept of philanthropy or donor in a social stock exchange. Again, now not for profit ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗಿನ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ we say we are giving service. ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಸೇವೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ. The moment we get into social stock exchange paradigm, we'll have to talk in terms of impact on investment. ನಾವು ನಮಗೆ ಬರುವಂತ ದುಡ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ what is the impact we are going to create, how is it measured, and what is the impact on investment. ನಾನು 100 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ because I am giving it to a not for profit, can I get worth of 150 rupees of service? Naniyalla beneficiary sigutta. Then other thing is passion as driver. Ivattina yavade ondu samajika ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಇರುವಂತದ್ದು ಒಂದು passion. That is what drives us, not the question of making money or it is a career. Majority of the organizations work because they are passionate to do some social transformation. But social stock exchange framework ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಾಗ professionalism as a driver. ಅಂದ್ರೆ if you are able to become professional in your all your approach, not only in thinking but doing and later measuring, only then you are going to be able to participate in this social stock exchange. which means there is going to be a shift. Just passion is not going to be sufficient. With the passion, you should also develop the professional qualities that are required to work on scale. Then financial audits. Currently, we only do financial audits. We don't get into any other audit at this point of time. Many organizations, there are very few organizations which are of scale. They get into social audit. As of now, also they are doing social audits, and they are also doing impact assessment reports. Our Madi or publish ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ there is no framework to say that this is a must. But once the social stock exchange comes into play, social audits becomes compulsory as well as the financial audits. So this is going to be one of the major shifts. Then if you look at philanthropic contribution is what is going to be done in the current stage. Namage baranta duddu, either it can be a donation from high net individuals, people, generic people, corporates through CSR or otherwise, and there could be government grants. So all these, but all these are one sari kodantadu. It is only a contribution given, but there is no expectation back. But once the social stock exchange comes into play, return on investment is also expected in some type of investments. Elladrallu antalla, we will come to the little other ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮುಂದೆ ಬರೋಣ, but there is also the component of I need to get return on my investment. I am going to invest because I know you are going to create an impact. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ದುಡ್ಡು ಹಾಕುವಂತ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಬಂದು ನೀವೊಂದು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ನ ಸಮಾಜದಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅನ್ನೋ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ದುಡ್ಡು ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಹಾಕೋ ದುಡ್ಡಿಗೆ ನನಗೆ ಬಡ್ಡಿ ಬೇಕು, ಅಥವಾ ಐ ನೀಡ್ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ಮೈ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ದ ನ್ಯೂ ಪ್ಯಾರಡೈಮ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ NPOs ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ದೇರ್ ಕೇಪಬಿಲಿಟೀಸ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತನಕ ಏನಾಗ್ತಿತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ NPOs ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಿರುವಂತ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರ ಸಾಮರ್ಥ್ಯ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವರ whatever projects they have done, their statutory compliances, ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇತ್ತು. ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. IT ಫೈಲಿಂಗು IT ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬೇಕಿರುವಂತದ್ದು ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಆದಂತ ಒಂದು ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಈಗಿನ ಈ ಚೌಕಟ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ once the paradigm ಅಂದ್ರೆ social stock exchange ಇದಾದಾಗ ಡ್ಯೂ ಡಿಲಿಜೆನ್ಸ್ ಬೈ IRs, ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಟರಿ ರಿಪಾಸಿಟರೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಯಾರು ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, they will be doing a due diligence before admitting you into the system where you can participate in the social stock exchange. So this is going to be the new thing that is going to happen. Other riti nodi, let us also look at what is going to happen in terms of the donations and donors. Big small time donors will shift to zero coupon, zero principal bond. Idರಲ್ಲಿ social stock exchange ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇದೆ. ಏನು, this is purely like your ATG receipt, zero coupon, zero principal bond. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ you will have to announce that you will be doing this particular activity, and the time to complete this activity is going to be whatever time, 1 ವರ್ಷ ಇರಬಹುದು, 2 ವರ್ಷ ಇರಬಹುದು. And you ask people to invest into this. ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಈಗ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಯಾರೋ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಸೇವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಥವಾ ನಾನು ನಿಜವಾದ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಕಳಕಳೆ ಇದೆ, ಹೀಗಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ನನ್ ಬರೋ ಸಂಬಳದಲ್ಲಿ 5%, 2% ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಗಿವ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ಸೊಸೈಟಿ ಅಂತ there is a people will think. ಆ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತ ಜನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, they will be able to go to this social stock exchange site and look at which are the projects which would require this kind of funding. So ನೀವು ಒಂದು 10,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ zero coupon, zero principal bond ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಈಗ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ 2 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ 2 ವರ್ಷದ ನಂತರ ನಿಮಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ 0 ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಿಮಗೆ ಆ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ 10,000ಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವೇನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರಸೀಟ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. So this is simply like you getting the ATG receipt as on the current system. ಈಗ ಏನಿದೆಯೋ ಅದು. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ people who want to help without donating but want to help. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ನನಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ದುಡ್ಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಆದ್ರೆ ನನಗೆ ಕಳಕಳಿ ಇದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಡೊನೇಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ನನಗಿಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ. ಅದರ ನಂತರ ಹಣ ಇದೆ, ನನ್ಗೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ಹಣ ಇದೆ, ನಂಗೆ ಈಗ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಅದು ಬೇಕಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ತರದ ಜನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಮ್ಯೂಚುವಲ್ ಫಂಡ್ಸ್. ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತ ಮ್ಯೂಚುವಲ್ ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ಗೆ ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್. ಈಗ 3 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಇದ್ರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ದುಡ್ಡನ್ನ ಅದನ್ನ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಮ್ಯೂಚುವಲ್ ಫಂಡ್ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಇವರು ಅದನ್ನ ನಡೆಸ್ತಾರೆ, ಇಂಟರ್ಮೀಡಿಯೇಟ್. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತ ಲಾಭನ ನಿಮಗ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸಾರಿ, ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತ ಲಾಭನ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ದುಡ್ಡು ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ 3 ವರ್ಷ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನ ನಿಮಗೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಈಗ ನೀವು 10,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ 3 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ 1,500 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಜನರೇಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ 1,500 ರೂಪಾಯಿನ ಒಂದು NGO ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ 10,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟು 1,500 ರೂಪಾಯಿಗೆ ರಸೀಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಡಿಡಕ್ಟಬಲ್ ರಸೀಟ್. This is what is going to be the case of a mutual fund investment in a social stock exchange, what they are proposed. Again, there are people and organizations wanting to support social initiatives but want returns. They will become social investors. ಇದು 3ನೇ ತರದವರು. ಇವ್ರು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ they want to participate in a larger scale. ಈಗ ಒಂದು 10 ಕೋಟಿದೋ 20 ಕೋಟಿದೋ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಪೋಸಲ್ ಬಂದಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ನಾನು ಒಂದು 2 ಕೋಟಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಆ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನನಗೆ ನನ್ನ 2 ಕೋಟಿ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಐ ನೀಡ್ ಸಮ್ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಆನ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ಈಗ 8%, 10% ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಡ್ಡಿ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಇದು ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೋ ಅದನ್ನ ನನಗೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡೋ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಸೇರಿಸಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೌ ದೀಸ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್. ಇವ್ರು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ದೇರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ, ಈ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್, ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ CSR ಫಿಲಾಂಥ್ರಪಿ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟರ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್. ಇವ್ರು ಯಾವಾಗ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಅದರ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಅಸೆಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿರ್ತಾರೋ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಚೀವ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಈ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ದುಡ್ಡನ್ನ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಈ ದುಡ್ಡು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಯಾರು ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಈ ದುಡ್ಡು ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಈ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಲಿಟಲ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಟೆಡ್ ಥಿಂಗ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಒಂದು ನಾಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್, they have to create a project proposal which will be converted into an impact bond. ಆ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಬಾಂಡ್ಗೆ ಸುಮಾರು 10 ಕೋಟಿ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಅಂದ್ರೆ there will be individuals and organizations which will invest on this 10 crore. ಇದು 3 ವರ್ಷ ಅಥವಾ 5 ವರ್ಷ ಯಾವ ಅವಧಿ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತಾರೋ ಆ ಅವಧಿ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ there will be social auditors or impact assessors who will do the impact assessment. ಮಾಡಿ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿರುವಂತ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋರಿಗೆ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಅಸೆಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ದುಡ್ಡು. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ದುಡ್ಡು ಸಿಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ರಿಸ್ಕ್ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆಸ್ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ರಿಸ್ಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರಿವಾರ್ಡ್. ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋರಿಗೆ ಎರಡೂ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಈಗ ಲೆಟ್ ಮಿ ಪುಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇನ್ ವೆರಿ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್. One NGO comes out with a bond and let's say one business company will invest 10 crores into that. ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಕಂಪನಿ 10 ಕೋಟಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದರ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ 4 ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಲ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ನ ಇನ್ನು 5 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಎರಾಡಿಕೇಟ್. ಮಾಲ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಇರೋರ್ನೂ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸರಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಮುಂದೆ ಹುಟ್ಟುವಂತ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಮಾಲ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರುವಂತ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ 10 ಕೋಟಿ ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಖರ್ಚು. ಸೊ somebody will invest, you will work on it. 5 ವರ್ಷದ ನಂತರ you will make a assessment and that will be assessed by the impact assessors. Social audit to impact assessors ಇವ್ರು ಯಾರು ಇರ್ತಾರೋ ಇವ್ರು ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದು ಮಾಡಿದ ನಂತರ they will give a certificate to say that this has been eradicated and next few years there is no possibility of a child being born in malnutrition. ಆ ರೀತಿ ಒಂದು ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಈಗ ONGC ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಅನ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್. ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನ ಅಚೀವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ 10 ಕೋಟಿ ಜೊತೆಗೆ 5 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 8% ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಡ್ಡಿ ಸೇರಿಸಿ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಗಿವ್ 10 ಪ್ಲಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ವಾಪಸ್ ಆ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೌ ದಿಸ್ ಹೋಲ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಕ್ಸ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಮರೆಯುವಂತ ಕಾಲ ಮುಗಿತಾ ಬಂತು. ಈಗ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ ಮೇಲೆ you should also become accountable. At the same time, there are also funds which are going to invest in the social issues, but expecting a result back. Social stock exchange alli there are going to be some new actors. ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಒಂದು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ರೆಪಾಸಿಟರೀಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ರೆಪಾಸಿಟರೀಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಎನ್ಯುಮರೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ NPOs. NPO ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಯಾರಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಲಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಕೆಲಸ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಕೆಲಸ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಕೆಲಸ, ಈ ತರದನ್ನ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದು ಇವರು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ರೆಪಾಸಿಟರೀಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರು ವ್ಯಾಲಿಡೇಟ್ activities and the areas of operation ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬ್ರಿಂಗಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಅಮಾಂಗ್ NPOs, ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ನ ತಂದು ಆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಡೇಟಾ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ they will be able to enumerate to the social stock exchange. Act as feeders. ಈಗ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ, ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ಸ್ಗೆ, ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ಗೆ these people will tell these are good NPOs. ಇವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಇವ್ರ ಬಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ನೀವು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ you will get 100% return because they are good in their work. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತ ಒಂದು ರೆಕಮೆಂಡೇಶನ್ ಕೊಡುವಂತ ಕೆಲಸನೂ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಆರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲೇಟ್ ಕಾಮನ್
disturbance, sir. We need to end the session in another 5 minutes. Is it okay, sir?
Yeah. To articulate common set of financial reporting standards for NPOs with help of Institute of Chartered Accountants ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಫೈನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ನ ತರಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ರೆಕಮೆಂಡೇಶನ್ ಇದೆ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಮೀಡಿಯರಿಟೀಸ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಬಾಂಡ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ NPOs ಆ ಬಾಂಡ್ ನ ಸೇಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಇವರು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಯಾರು ಇರ್ತಾರೋ ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗಿ ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಅಂತ ಕೆಲಸನೂ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗಿ ಇವ್ರು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಡಿ ಇದಾರೆ, ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ವಿಲ್ ಯು ಬಿ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಬೈ ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ದಟ್ ಮನಿ. ಸೊ ಈ ಒಟ್ಟು ಕೆಲಸನ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ರೆಪಾಸಿಟರೀಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಇವ್ರದ್ದು ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಇವರ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್. ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಚಾರ್ಜಿಂಗ್. ಇದಲ್ಲದೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದಷ್ಟು ಬರೋದು ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟರಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ ಪ್ರಪೋಸ್ಡ್. ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಈ IRs ಯಾರಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಇವ್ರದೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಫೋರಮ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ IRs ಹೌ ಡು ವಿ ಗೆಟ್ ಅ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡೈಸ್ಡ್ ಮೆಕ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಮಾಡೋಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟರಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್, ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಒನ್ ಮೋರ್. ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಸರ್ಟಿಫೈಡ್ ಯಾರು ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ನೋ ಏಜೆನ್ಸಿ ವಿಚ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸರ್ಟಿಫೈ, ಬಟ್ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಕಮ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಪ್ಲೇ ಟು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಎ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನಲ್ ಬಾಡಿ. ಆ ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ, ಒಂದು ರೆಕಮೆಂಡೇಶನ್ ಇದೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಫಂಡ್, ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿದೀವಿ ನಾವು, ವಿಚ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಡ್ ಬೈ SEBI. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಟೆಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ದ CSR ಫಂಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವು ಕೊಡಬಹುದು, ಕೊಡೋ ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಅವರು ಒಂದು ರೆಕಮೆಂಡೇಶನ್ ಇದೆ. ಚಾಲೆಂಜಸ್ ಏನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಇಫ್ ಯು ಲುಕ್ ಅಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ 31 lakh NPOs ಆಸ್ ಆಫ್ 2012. ಈಗಿನ ಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ ಪ್ರಕಾರ 36 ಲಕ್ಷ NGOs ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ಡ್ ಈ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಅಂತ. ಅಂಡ್ if you look at that 31 lakh and also look at 1.8 lakh NGOs which are exempted by income tax, ಅಂದ್ರೆ 12A certification ಬಂದಿರುವಂತದ್ದು ಕೇವಲ 1.8 lakh NGOs ಮಾತ್ರ. Which means ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಬರೋದಿರಲಿ, ಅವ್ರು ಇನ್ನು ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಸರ್ಟಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೇನೆ ಅವ್ರು ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ದ ಮೆಜಾರಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ದ NGOs. ಸೊ ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಹೌ ಡು ವಿ ಬ್ರಿಂಗ್ ದೆಮ್ ಟು ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್? This is going to be a big task. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ಯೂರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಡಿಫೈನ್ಡ್ ಬೈ IR ಅಂಡ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಡಿಟ್. NGOs ಇದು ಯಾರು ಇದನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇರ್ತಾರೋ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಎ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ವರ್ಕ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು ನಾವು. ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟೇಶನ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಅ ಮೇಜರ್ ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದಟ್ಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಆಡ್ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಟು ದ NGOs in terms who are not accustomed to do those kind of things. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಎಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಡೈಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ SBI ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ವೆಲ್ ವರ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕಮರ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಡೈಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅಭ್ಯಾಸ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ either we should build capacity or get one financial expert into the team. ಇಲ್ಲದಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ many NGOs ಅಲ್ಲಿ full time accountant ಇರಲ್ಲ. This is the kind of a scenario we are looking. And then effect of cost of service to beneficiaries. Now, this model, what is the cost of service to beneficiaries? Now, 10 ರೂಪಾಯಿಯಲ್ಲಿ service beneficiary reach ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ, will it still remain at 10 rupees because of the scale, because of the professional thing, and we need to pay for IR, social audit, and lot of other expenses? Will the 10 rupee cost will be 10 rupees or will it become 20 rupees? That is also something we need to see, and how do we manage this? I mean, retain the spirit of volunteerism. This is very important. How do you retain the spirit of volunteerism? When you want to hire only professional people based on qualification, based on their experience, and not based on their passion. Because you need people who are qualified. So then what happens to volunteerism? Again, when we are working towards all this, should the corporatizing of seva, how do we avoid? Now on corporate riti behave madlik shuru martiva. This is something which we need to think. Then creation of Maharaja set of NPOs. There will be big and large NGOs who will be able to participate and manage all these things. But many of the small NGOs may not. So are we creating a social structure among NPOs? So this is something we need to think. And yeah, suddenly you just know it is time to start something new and trust the magic begins. So we all have to hope that whatever is happening is for good, and we will be able to adopt it and use it for the benefit of society. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for briefing us on how SSC is going to impact social enterprises and NPOs and post SSC implementation scenario. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now the forum is open for question and answer. There are some questions, sir. Okay. What is the difference between social return and financial return?
Basically, social return is the impact what you are going to create on the society. If I am going to do a project on for physically challenged children, if I am going to add limbs and artificial legs and those kind of things, that is the project I am going to be doing. So the social impact, social returns is going to be that the child is able to walk, the child is able to move his hands. That is the social impact, social returns. But if I invest into that, expecting that I will get back my principal as well as my some interest, then it is the return on investment.
Thank you, sir. Next question is there any legal criteria to distinguish between social enterprise and a normal enterprise?
Yeah, so the Indian law has no definition of social enterprises at the moment. So as Dr. Geeta, you are mentioning the British Council study also.
Yes.
So the viewpoint there also is that, social enterprise is a matter of self-identification. So, basically if an organization identifies itself, the essential feature being that, they are pursuing kind of both the social return and the financial return. So they are not just pursuing the social purpose, but they're also kind of generating revenues, maybe as a means to kind of finance or support or sustain those activities which are directed at social change. So Indian law has not defined the social enterprise in any way. Having said that, this is also a topic I feel that maybe in the next webinar session, this can be elaborated. But other countries in the world, some other countries have come up with the legal forms, which are called the hybrid forms. Hybrid, which kind of marries the for-profit and the non-profit in what is supposed to be a classic, social enterprise form. So the United Kingdom, for example, has the CICs, the community interest companies, which have some mechanisms to, allow the blended pursuit of social return and the financial return, like they have dividend cap, asset lock. These are some of the mechanisms that they have, concrete ways in which you can actually help balance these two things. Similarly, USA, has the benefit corporations. So, but the Indian law has not yet done it.
Thank you, ma'am. And the next question is SSA act as directory connecting enterprise with potential investors?
Muted.
Dr. Ananya, you're not audible. Dr. Ananya, you're muted.
Okay. All right, sorry. Mr. Kiran, would you like to say something on that?
No, carry on.
Okay, all right. So is it a directory to connect? So it is definitely a forum to connect. That there is absolutely no doubt that social stock exchange would be a forum which would bring together the investors and the investees. Okay. Having said that, social stock exchange is not just like a matchmaking platform. Okay, so because India has tried out a similar, connection platform in the past, like the BSE Samman, where you could have like, connecting the funders to the projects, or funders to organization. That is simple matchmaking. But so the concept of social stock exchange borrows from a commercial stock exchange. So where, this whole idea of the trading of securities comes in. So that is what a true social stock exchange would be. But like I can expect for the Indian context, like I think that what we are going to have, possibly is going to blend some features of, the normal matchmaking thing will also be there. I feel like in the form which will come about in the future, side by side with these instruments also, like the securities also, like the bonds or the equity, which will be traded. So I can foresee a blend, of the simple matchmaking with the trading of the securities.
Just to add on, I feel that zero bond, principal bond, but that can be acted as a matchmaking thing, because it will list out what are the different organizations doing what, and people who want to invest can directly invest into that.
Yeah. Yes. So actually, Mr. Kiran, just to add this, this whole topic of bonds also, because the SEBI report really says something very interesting on the zero coupon, zero principal bonds, linking it to this concept of an outcome guarantor. So because it says that, supposing I am a socially enlightened investor, and I want to buy this, I want to kind of invest through this mechanism of the zero coupon, zero principal bonds. Now, I may not have any expectation of financial return. In fact, this concept, there should be no expectation of financial return at all, but there should be, there is an expectation of social return. So as a socially conscious investor, I am looking for some measurable social impact to happen. So I will be very disappointed if that social impact doesn't happen. So actually the SEBI report talks about the concept of an outcome guarantor. So if I get disappointed because I don't see that social impact that I wanted to see, an outcome guarantor like a CSR, a company which they can use their CSR funds to act as an outcome guarantor. So do you think, sir, that this adds any value from your experience or from your understanding?
This definitely there is going to a value add when it comes to an based on the outcome, because then two things is going to happen. One, there is a clear defined outcome at the beginning of the project itself, and at the end, if it is measured properly, and this also incentivizes the not-for-profit to get into more funding because they have done one good case. So definitely it's going to be an impact. And CSR, see, today CSR is more a check writing organizations, most of it. So anyway, this will become more interesting for CSR.
Okay. So next question is whether it is useful for Indian context or not.
Yeah, sir, first, Mr. Kiran will answer this first.
Yes.
See, there is whether it is too early. I would say yes, it is too early at this point of time because we are working from a constraint perspective rather than a planning perspective. We are looking at that we are unable to meet SDG goals and other things, and that is why we are trying to force fit a mechanism without creating the ecosystem. If you look at Thailand as one example, they have created the ecosystem first and then they have created the exchange. So without creating that ecosystem, I think we will get into a lot of mess.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, with the answer given by Mr. Kiran. Really, that is the perfect answer to this question.
Okay. And next question is how to address the issues of reverse migration and counter urbanization, and how SSC is going to help this.
I think, see, SSC will help any kind of social transformation. So there is nothing that only for reverse migration and how do we cater to their livelihood. That is I wouldn't say that. First of all, this SSC is going to take another 2 years to get implemented in its full form. So the reverse migration issue has to be dealt now and not after 2 years. So social stock exchange for this particular period of COVID-based reverse migration, I don't think they will be able to do anything. It is the people on the ground who will have to work, and the community-based organizations are the organizations who can support in creating livelihood opportunities.
Yes, thank you. And the last question, sir. If we feel that NGOs are facing financial issues, why don't we promote PPP mode, public-private?
That is what social stock exchange is all about.
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Any other questions from the participants? So now we are coming to end this webinar. I request Shri S.R. Karni to propose vote of thanks. Sir, you are muted, Karni sir.
Is it audible, madam?
Yeah, you are audible.
Thank you, madam. A very good evening to one and all. Myself, Somling Karni, a faculty of MSW program. It's my privilege to propose out of thanks on this occasion. First, I would like to thank our beloved Honorable Vice Chancellor of KSRD University, Professor Vishnukant S. Chatpalli sir, for giving introductory remark on this program and given an opportunity to conduct this program successfully. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Once again. I would like to thank respected Registrar Sir of KSRD University, Professor Basavaraj L. Lakkanor sir, for welcoming to all and introduction speech on this occasion. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank eminent key speakers of this program, Dr. Ananya Samajdar, Senior Research Fellow and Head Research, Grama Institute, Mysuru. Thank you, madam, for accepting our invitation and sharing valuable thoughts with us. Thank you, madam. I would like to thank one more eminent key speakers of this program, Mr. D.K. Kiran sir, CEO, ONGC Foundation, New Delhi, for sharing their views. Thank you, sir. And also, I would like to thank Dr. Geeta N. Bangare madam, moderator of this program and coordinator for MSW program, for organizing this successful event. Thank you, madam. I would like to thank organizing committee who made this program a grand success. Thank you. Thank you, all the organizing committee members. I also thank to all the faculty members and non-teaching faculties of KSRD Peru for their continued support and encouragement. Thank you one and all. Last but not least, I thank all the participants, senior professors, social work fraternities, and everyone who have witnessed to make this program a grand success. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. As we already shared in the beginning, it's a series of webinar, and we will communicate the date, time, and topic of the next seminar later. And we are also sharing the feedback form to your email IDs. Please fill it. I thank all the dignitaries, speakers, and participants for making this